Hi again. Welcome back to my channel, Designer Secrets, Tips, Tricks, and Hacks, How to Decorate Like a Pro. My name is Lori, and today we are going to talk about window treatments, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And yes, there are some super ugly, which I'm going to show you and what not to do. But anyhow, the first thing when it comes to window treatments and coverings is why you are wanting to use them. So, is it a matter of light control? Is it a matter of privacy? Is it a matter of security? Things like that, because that will matter when it comes to where you're going to start looking. So, that's the jumping off point. And another trend that's going on right now is natural materials for use in window treatments like wood and bamboo and seagrass and even natural fabrics like linens. It's a really big deal because of this new mid century modern look that is coming back, and it uses a lot of wood tones. So that's why it's translating over into your window treatments. So let's get started and watch to the end because there's going to be some really good stuff. Okay, so like we talked about, the first thing you want to think about is what kind of light you want to have in the room that you are installing window treatments. So, if you want something very bright, light, and airy, you're going to go with something sheer, which is on your far left. And side note on shears, be careful because, yeah, you can go to Walmart and get some really cheap ones, but they're going to look really cheap. So spend a little more money, get some that have maybe a little weave to them or some kind of a stripe detail like this one appears to have, but something so that it doesn't look like you went to Walmart and bought $5 shears. So in the middle picture, there is a semi-sheer, which is pretty self-explanatory. It'll let some light in, not as much as a sheer, but not as little as the blackout curtain that you see in the bottom right. Blackouts are great for bedrooms, obviously, and TV rooms to block light from glaring on the TV screen. And on the top right, there are solar shades that will actually block UV rays, and it is a little pricier to do them. However, if you have dark hardwood floors like I do and a sunroom, which those two things don't mix because now I have rectangular colors on the floor where the sun has faded around the area rug. So if you can spring for the extra money to get solar shades, I highly recommend it because it is definitely cheaper than refinishing your hardwood floor or buying new furniture that gets faded. So next, let's talk about window shades and blind options. There are a ton. However, I'm going to show you the most typical ones that I'd say 95% of the population uses. So you can always do traditional shutters, which are a little more expensive because you have to have them obviously custom made for your windows. And a lot of times it gives you more of a coastal feel. So if you are going for that look, that is a good option for you. The next one is a roller shade, and I am not talking about the roller shades that are plastic and rip if you look at them. So these you can now buy in fabrics and different materials, and they look a lot more high end and they're very tailored. In the top middle, we've got seagrass, bamboo shades, which is nice and natural looking. It's a very big trend right now to use natural materials, especially when you're heading towards this mid-century modern look that's going on right now. So those are good alternatives. And below that, Roman shades are classic. They've been around forever. You can make them look very different depending on what fabric you use. If you use any like detailing, this one has some edge bands in a solid color, which looks nice. So Roman shades are great. And top right, there's the good old vinyl blinds. And I don't mean aluminum, and I definitely don't recommend aluminum unless there is no other option. But the vinyl blinds are more cost effective as opposed to wood. Usually you want to do about a 2-inch slat width on those, and white is a very common color that goes with pretty much everything. And then below that are, same thing, wood blinds. I'd say about a 2-inch slat width. And again, back to the natural materials. These are very in right now and go really well with the natural feel that people are trying to do. So here is a handy dandy guide for hanging curtains. And you can see there are a couple different options. So on the top one, you've got 1 to 2 inches below the ceiling or 12 inches higher than the window. And the second one, you are 6 to 8 inches above the window. Now, you want to have rods that extend past your window width. And I'd say just like this, about 6 to 12 inches. Obviously, it will matter how far out you want your curtains to go. And side note here, you don't want your curtains to be past the window frame. You want them to come in and cover up at least a small portion of the window. Having your curtain rods wider than the window is a great way to make your windows appear larger, because people will automatically assume that your window is going past the point of where they stop seeing it and out to the width of where your curtain ends. So that's a neat little trick there. And your brackets, you want to go 4 to 6 inches from the side of the window frame. So those are some handy notes there. And then we're going to talk about curtain lengths here more in a minute. But this shows you can either kind of brush the floor with your curtain or puddle them. And again, we'll talk about that more in a second. So curtain rods are important, obviously, because you can get them with decorative finials. You can get them very simple that really don't stand out at all. On the top center, you can see you can get corner rods, so you have a nice clean line around your windows that meet in the corner, and it doesn't look broken up. It looks nice and neat and continuous. You've got tension rods. You can do that set inside the frame of the window, which really makes the curtain itself stand out and not the rod. And that's a really good one to use when you are in the kitchen over the kitchen sink with a cafe curtain, which I'll show you in a little bit too, or in a bathroom over a bathtub to give you some privacy but not have a rod sticking out and being in the way. And the different types of ways to mount curtains are either the grommet, which is in the top right, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's a nice clean look, and rod pocket below. And I'm going to mention this again on another picture, but as you can see, the rod slides into the rod pocket and there is nothing above it. Sometimes they do like a little ruffly detail up there, which don't do that. It's not a good look. The one that is below that is a back tab, and basically it'll still give you a little bit of a pleated look, but the rod just slides in on some tabs that are back behind the panel. You can also do curtain rings, which are a nice look too. Gives you a little bit more contemporary with the clips, and you can hang them in as high as or as low as you want. It's a little bit more forgiving because you can adjust where the ring and clip hook onto the curtain. And on the left of that, you'll see tie tops. That is more of a relaxed casual look, which I'd say the tab top is too. So maybe if you have more of a farmhouse look going on, or even a child's room, the tie top is a great way to do that. So here are some don'ts, and these are some common mistakes, and I just want to go through them. So hopefully this doesn't offend anybody, because this is all just for learning experience. But on the left, we have too much puddling. I know puddling can be a really cool look, but you also don't want to make your curtains a tripping hazard. Now, on the opposite side of that, you don't want your curtains to be too short. They should at least be brushing the floor. In the middle bottom, we are not doing valances anymore. Just do the two side panels and be done with it. It looks great. This looks like grandma's house. And maybe there are some tailored valances that would be okay. But again, we're just doing some highlights of what to do and what not to do. Above that, you can see the cafe curtain with the little ruffled valance and some tie-back side panels. And that's just no, don't do that. A lot of kitchen windows have something like this going on above them, but I'm going to show you in a second what to do instead. And as we talked about previously, you will see in the top right the sheer and the little ruffly portion at the top. And you just need to get a sheer, or any kind of panel for that matter, that sits directly on top of the rod and does not have that. It's a more high-end look if you don't have that ruffle. And on the bottom right, this is a giant no for many reasons, but I'm hoping this picture was taken in the 80s. I don't know. So we don't want fringe. We don't want the, I call it the coffin lining look of that swag at the top, because literally it reminds me of the lining they put in coffins. And sometimes we do tiebacks still, but it is a more dated look unless you know how to do it right. So let's just stay away from that. So here's the yes, do these things. And if you look at the far left, there are 3 ways that the curtains can meet the floor. You can have at the top floating or touching, basically. You want to leave just a teeny little gap if possible, so that any dirt touching on the floor, the curtains don't touch and get them dirty. However, if you're daring and a super clean person, you can do the next 2. The second one is called breaking, and it is touching the floor just enough to where the material itself kind of folds out. And then in the bottom picture is puddling, and you can see that it's not excessive. It's just enough to give it kind of a glamorous look. And when you do puddling, an easier way to do it is grab the bottom of the panel, stand back, and let go, and see how it lays naturally when it lands. And then you can kind of tuck the edges under. So in the top picture next to these, you can do, instead of a valance, just the 2 panels. It's a really clean look. It's very easy, common. And I'd say that that rod is sticking out probably 10 inches to 12 inches past the actual width of that window. But as you can see, it makes the window look wider because it gives the visual illusion that the window goes out to the edge of the window panels. So again, on the shears, you don't want the ruffle on top. And this one is a good example of a more high quality shear, because it does have a slub woven into it. So it has a little detail. It's not super shiny. They're still not going to be that expensive. So spring for the extra $2 and get a shear that has a little detailing so it doesn't look cheap. And cafe curtains back up here on the top. Again, I like a tension rod for this application, because you don't want a rod that comes out past the window frame, because it'll get in your way. And if you're doing dishes and lean forward, maybe you'll bump your head. We don't want that. So you see that the curtain itself touches the sill, and the tension rod is about halfway up the window, so you can have privacy if you want to close them, but you can still have a nice visual of the sunshine and the trees and whatever else you have going on outside. And that same applies for bathroom window as well. The picture below that, and it's a very big trend right now, is to layer your window treatments. So this, you have panels, you have shades behind them, and you could even throw a third element of a sheer that sticks out just a little bit past the panel. So layering is a great look, a great way to add a little drama. And then instead of all the fringe and coffin lining and craziness from that other picture, you want to do subtle details. You can do this with edge banding, where you have a patterned edge banding in the middle there. You have solid edge banding down on the far bottom right with the navy blue, and the white gives it a little pop. And then color blocking in the top right, you see that the bottom third of the curtain is in a nice bright bold color. So those are good ways to add some details. And drama. Window treatments are a lot of times mostly about drama. I don't know about you, but if you have window treatments, you don't close them very often. I use them more just for looks. So like we talked about, you want to mix the type of elements on your window treatments, like blinds and sheers and panels, because that adds a nice layered look and gives you a little more visual interest. In the center picture, you can see that bold color and pattern is a big trend right now. Even colored blinds are in, and that is a little tricky to do right. So unless you feel super confident, I would just stick with neutrals. And also in the future, you don't have to change them out when you change your decor. However, if you want to experiment with colored blinds, I say go for it, and hopefully it works out for the best. And on the far right, floor to ceiling is a fantastic way to add drama. And if you had, this room doesn't need it, but if you had shorter height ceilings, like maybe 8 foot or even a little below, if you do floor to ceiling curtains, you will add visual height to the room and make it seem a lot taller than it actually is. So there's another design trick right there. And a lot of people these days have big window walls, and it can be confusing on how to do window treatments. So again, it kind of matters if you're trying to block light, if it's just decorative, if you need something for more privacy at night. So there's all kinds of things to consider, but here are some ideas. In the top left, you can do individual shades, and with technology these days, motorized shades are a big trend because they are exceptionally handy, because obviously nobody is tall enough to reach up and close those shades at the top. So you can do motorized. On the picture below that, you can cover just the lower windows. That way you can have privacy at night if you wanted to close the curtains, but the uppers still just maintain their clean lines with no covering at all. And in the center, we are flanking the sides of the window wall, going all the way up. Again, you're going to add some drama and some pattern and color using this technique. And you can tell that this is not meant to do any kind of blocking of the windows, because the curtain rod is just the width of the panel itself, which is nice look because then you don't have the rod going all the way across. On the top right, they have shades just on the lower windows that are the rectangles. The upper windows they've left alone. Again, if you need to be able to cover windows for privacy, the lower ones are really the only ones necessary that need to have a covering, and you can still let in light from the uppers. And bottom right, and this is one of my favorites, do nothing at all, because a lot of times the architecture of the windows themselves is beautiful and there's no need to cover it. This wasn't really an interesting layout of windows. looks like they have nobody behind them, so they can have a beautiful view of the woods all the time. So nothing at all is a great option too. So hopefully that helped and you feel a little better about how to pick out your window treatments. And two things I also wanted to mention: when you are going to purchase your window treatments, and if it is panels, fabric that we're talking about, you want to have the panel be approximately 2 times the width of the window. Or if it's 2 panels, obviously divide that in half. But that way you get enough of the fabric to bunch up and to make it look full and inviting, because you don't want to slide it closed and have just a flat piece of fabric along the window. And the other thing to think about is the rod thickness. Typically, it's between 1 inch to 3 inches, and it depends on the weight of what you're hanging on it. If it's a sheer or a light linen, you don't need anything that's super thick and heavy. If you have solid drapery with lining, I would go a little bit thicker on the rod so that it doesn't bow and sag. So that being said, I hope you liked and enjoyed the video. And if you liked and enjoyed it, please like it and subscribe and share. I will talk to you next time. Have a great day.